We love stories about rule breakers, cops who don't wait for warrants, heroes who do what has to be done. Dirty Harry is that hero. In the 1971 film, he tracks a serial killer across San Francisco. The law keeps getting in his way, so he ignores it. He tortures suspects, breaks into homes, shoots without warning, and the audience cheers. Because in the end, Harry gets the bad guy. But here's a real question. Is that justice? When police break the rules to punish evil, is it noble or is it dangerous? This isn't just a movie. It's a real ethical crisis in law enforcement, and it has a name, the Dirty Harry problem. It asks, can the people who enforce law ever be justified in breaking it? In today's session, we'll explore this dilemma. We'll look at what philosophers say and why the line between justice and abuse is thinner than we think. Because sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the gun, it's the moral excuse behind the trigger. The term Dirty Harry problem was coined by Karl Klockers in 1980. It describes a specific kind of ethical dilemma in policing. What should an officer do when legal methods seem powerless to stop a dangerous criminal? Klockers defined it as the problem of whether and under what conditions police may use morally or legally questionable means to achieve ends they regard as unquestionably good. And that's exactly what happens to Dirty Harry. Harry has a suspect in custody. He even knows where the victim might be. But he doesn't have a warrant, no confession, no time. So he tortures the suspect, breaks into his home, fires shots without protocol, and it works. In the movie, that makes Harry the hero. But in real life, it sets off alarms. Because this isn't just fiction. Police officers around the world face real situations where legal restraint clashes with moral urgency. And many believe if the cause is good enough, the rules can bend. That's the Dirty Harry problem. It's not just about breaking the rules, it's about believing you are right to break them. Because when you think your cause is righteous, it becomes easy to justify almost anything. And that's where the real danger begins, with some calling it as noble cause corruption. Noble cause corruption happens when the law enforcers break rules, not for money, not for power, but because they believe they're doing the right thing. Scholar Jocelyn Pollock defines it as corruption committed in the name of good ends, often involving the use of unethical or illegal means to achieve what officers see as morally justified outcomes. The suspect is guilty, the system is too slow, the paperwork is a joke, and someone innocent might die. So the officer bends the law, cuts a corner, falsifies a report, not for personal gain, but for what they see as the greater good. This is what makes it dangerous. It feels noble, it feels heroic. In Dirty Harry, it's torture. In real life, it could be planting evidence, it can be lying under oath, or executing a suspect before they reach the court. These aren't bad cops in traditional sense. They are often respected, decorated, even admired. But once you believe the system gets in the way of justice, you stop seeing the rules as limits. You start seeing them as obstacles. And that's when law enforcement becomes something else entirely. Not as a guardian of justice, but a judge, jury, and executioner. Noble cause corruption blurs the line between serving the law and replacing it. When officers justify breaking the rules, they're often thinking like utilitarians, even if they've never heard the term before. Utilitarianism is a moral theory developed by philosophers Bentham and J.S. Mill. Its central idea is very simple. The right action is the one that produces the greatest good for the greatest number. If lying saves a life, if breaking a rule prevents a massacre, then that's just not acceptable. It's a right thing to do. And in some cases, that reasoning feels hard to argue with. What if torturing a suspect stops a terrorist attack? What if planting evidence puts a serial killer behind bars? What if shooting someone without warning saves a child's life? To a utilitarian, the outcome is what that matters the most. And if the outcome is good, the method can be forgiven. That's why Dirty Harry's action seems heroic, because they work. But here's the danger. When success becomes a moral standard, almost anything can be justified. And once we decide that what works is more important than what's right, we are not enforcing justice anymore. We are improvising it. Not everyone thinks outcomes are what that matters most. Kant, one of the most influential philosophers in moral history, had a completely different view. For Kant, morality isn't about what works, it's all about what's right. He believed there are some things you must never do, no matter how good the result might be. Torture, lying, killing without due process. Because when you do these things, you're not just breaking the law, you're breaking the idea of morality itself. Kant called this principle the categorical imperative. Act only on that maxim which you can will to be a universal law. In simple terms, only do what you would be okay with everyone doing everywhere and always. So ask yourself this question: what principle is Harry acting on when he tortures a suspect? Maybe it's, if I believe someone's guilty, I can ignore the law. Now apply Kant's test. What if every officer followed that rule? What if every citizen acted that way? You would have a world where suspicion becomes justification, where force replaces fairness, and where justice depends on who holds the gun. That's not justice, that's authoritarianism with good intentions. Kant's message is very clear here. You can't build justice by breaking it. Because the moment you allow yourself to do wrong for the right reasons, you're no longer holding the moral line. You're crossing it. And that's how exception becomes the norm. The Dirty Harry problem isn't just a movie dilemma. It's real, it's global. Because once we accept that breaking the law is okay in some cases, it's easy to start expanding those cases. And that's the danger of noble cause corruption. It doesn't stay small, it becomes a pattern. Let's take a few real-life examples here. Let's go to Philippines. President Duterte launched a war on drugs in Philippines. Thousands were killed in police operations, many without warrants or trials. The message was very clear. If you are a suspect, you are a target. The result? Fear replaced due process, people cheered, and the law lost its meaning. Forget Philippines. Let's come down to India. Even in democracies, Dirty Harry logic applies, but it takes a quieter form. In 2021, investigations revealed that governments were using Pegasus spyware to surveil journalists, lawyers, and opposition leaders. No warrants, no transparency, all in the name of national interest. But when the state watches its critiques in secret, who's watching the state? In each case, the excuse is the same. We had to do it, the stakes were too high. But that's how slippery slope works. Because once you allow one exception, it stops being an exception. Philosopher Judith Shklar offered a warning that fits the Dirty Harry problem perfectly. She called it the liberalism of fear. To her, the greatest political evil wasn't inequality or poverty or disorder. It was cruelty backed by power. She argued that the first responsibility of any state before growth, before efficiency, before heroism is to make sure people aren't afraid of their own government. Because when those in power decide to act outside the law, what you get isn't justice, it's fear dressed up as authority. In that kind of system, your rights don't protect you. They can be suspended, ignored, erased. That's what Shklar meant. The real test of a just society isn't how it treats the guilty, but how it treats the powerless. Because cruelty doesn't always look cruel. Sometimes it wears the badge. Sometimes it gives orders in the name of peace. And that's where Dirty Harry comes back in. He's not a villain. He thinks he's doing the right thing. So did many officers in real life. But once you believe your personal sense of justice above the law, you're not protecting society anymore. You're just remaking it in your own image. And history tells us that never ends well. We have seen why Dirty Harry problem is so tempting and so dangerous. Because when justice becomes a personal mission instead of a shared system, it stops being justice. Utilitarian logic says if it works, it's right. But Kant reminds us some lines aren't meant to be crossed even with good intentions. And Shklar warns the worst kind of cruelty is the kind that wears a uniform of virtue. So what makes justice just? It's not about catching the guilty, it's about how we do it. With process, with limits, with accountability. So long, happy learning.